It's not your job to change anyone. Really look into your motives for why you want people to change in your personal life. It's usually very selfish. You want people to behave in a way that you believe they should be behaving, and that typically relates to them behaving in a way that does something for you. So when you're trying to change people in your personal life, you can frame it as like, oh, I'm helping them and it's so good, and your mind can say all this stuff, but really the underlying reasons are very selfish, and even if you have good intentions, they can still be harmful to the person that you're interacting with. So I made this video, let people be in their own worlds, and it went viral. So I'm making a part 2, and in this one I want to go into a little bit more depth and address some common misconceptions that people have. So when we're actually trying to change people in our life, we're almost like trying to force certain behaviors onto them. We're trying to force something on them against their will, and we're not really respecting their journey, their development, their decision making, their freedom, their autonomy. Instead, we have this assumption that like, I know what's best for you, and parents are extremely guilty of this when it comes to their kids. It's like, I just know what's best for you. But really, if you're honest, you don't really know what's best for anyone. You have no clue what's best for this person or that person, or really whoever you're dealing with, until you really begin to dig into their situation and ask them. And really, you have to help people to build clarity within themselves if you want to really help them in any kind of meaningful way, right? And even in this sort of circumstance I'm talking about, of helping people to build clarity within themselves, you can't force this on people either. Some people will want you to help them. Some people won't want you to help them. So there's nothing wrong with offering support to people who are open to it, because there's an alignment there. It's different from trying to force it on someone who doesn't even want it in the first place. They're not open to it for whatever reason. So this concept of letting people be in their own worlds is especially important when it comes to the people who you relate to in your personal life, like your friendships or your romantic partners. Because if you're in a romantic relationship and you're trying to change someone in a very fundamental way in order to serve you, the relationship is probably not going to work out. It's probably very incompatible. You're actually better off letting that go, and not in a sort of very dismissive way. It's just, if you're trying to change the very fundamental aspects of another person's personality because you believe they should be this way, right? And look into why you believe that, look into what that does for you, you're probably not very compatible with them. It's the same thing with your friends. If you're trying to change all your friends, get new friends. You're probably not finding compatible matches, and more compatible matches exist. And I want you to really notice how you feel when you're trying to change someone. Notice what that does to the relationship. Notice what that does to the dynamic. Notice what that does to the felt experience and the emotions shared between you two. Probably will create a lot of anger or resentment or just tension, frustration. You're causing a lot of discomfort for yourself and the other person, because this behavior is wrong. This behavior is not correct, really. So I want to start getting into some common misconceptions right now, starting with my favorite one. But Lucas, you're trying to change people by uploading videos like this. No, you don't have to do a thing that I say. I don't care. I'm uploading content for people who find value in this and who want to apply this kind of stuff to their life. There's an alignment there between like my values and what I enjoy doing and people who find value in it and people who want to do it. So there's an alignment there, there's an agreement. And if you don't want to do it, you don't have to. I'm not forcing any change upon you. In fact, I'm very respectful to your agenda, to your own freedom. If you want to go and have a bunch of relationships and you want to try and force people to change, go right ahead. See what the results of that are. See what the emotional results are. See how close and connected you feel to other people. See what the depth of the relationship really is. And you'll notice that you'll probably get a lot of very mediocre results. If you do that, mediocre isn't even the right word to say. It's even worse than mediocre. You'll just get horrible results. But go try it out as a science experiment. Go see what happens. So in no way am I trying to force people to change. I don't care. If you find this valuable, good. That's the kind of person who I'm trying to be speaking to. If you don't want to do anything, awesome. Go do what you want, man. So forcing people to change doesn't even work. This is another sort of common idea that I have to say, that we will have the underlying assumption that like if you change someone, like they'll just be that way forever. When you're changing very fundamental aspects of a human being that are very inauthentic to them, that's only going to work in the short term, and it's going to be very uncomfortable. And in the long term, it'll lead to resentment and just overall frustration, and it will fail. They'll go back to their old ways because it's not normal for them. It's not who they actually are. So there's a lot of complex psychology when it comes to actually changing people. There's a lot of complicated dynamics when it comes to change. Even in the context of just personal growth, not everyone can grow at the same rate. Not everyone is going to develop in the same way. Not everyone is going to basically be the same. Growth happens pretty differently in different people. People can develop emotionally, people can develop cognitively, people can develop physically, spiritually, and there's certain rates at which people can grow. People can grow, at certain speeds. There's certain rates at which people can grow. And you have to respect the rate at which people can grow. Especially since I do a lot of mentorship / coaching, I have to identify the rate at which someone can grow and just notice where they're at and really just respect that about them. Like notice just how fast they can grow, what their level of consciousness is, and just hold that with so much care rather than trying to force a change on that. It just doesn't work. The psychology of change just doesn't work that way. If you're trying to force people to change, this whole approach screams that you are ignorant about how change works within people. And change is really complex. Just assume you have no idea how it works, because if you haven't really looked into it quite a lot, you probably don't. So you can still provide support when people want it. This is another misconception. If someone wants your support and they want to change and they want help, yeah, you can help them. That's perfectly fine. You don't have to ignore them. It's just when someone doesn't want it or when it's out of alignment with them and you believe that it should be, and it's like you're just manipulating the entire situation. This is the behavior that I'm talking about, and this does not work. You can attract people in your life that are very aligned with your values, with your energy, with your level of consciousness, with your values. So you can't actually create a sustainable change to someone if they don't even want it in the first place. If it's not true to them, if it's not something that's authentic and genuine to them, it's not going to work. So forcing it upon someone against their will doesn't actually work long term. It's a waste of your energy, and it's a waste of their energy to even just be there and be taking that. And overall, this is going to be a very good learning opportunity for you, because you're going to suffer doing this. And it's through this suffering and pain that you're going to learn oh crap, there's something very fundamentally flawed with how I'm going about this situation. That's what your suffering is trying to tell you. So if you're trying to change someone in your life in a very fundamental way, really ask yourself, what are you trying to get out of this person? What do you want from this situation? Why do you want them to change? And there's a lot more compatible people for you out there. If you're into spirituality and your partner's not into spirituality and they never will be, and you keep trying to push it onto them, it's not going to work. This area of the relationship will not work. And if this is something that you are not willing to compromise on, this is very important to you, you might want to rethink your relationship. If this is a very core thing to you that you are just not willing to compromise on, you want this out of your relationship, and you're honest to yourself, you're I really want this out of my relationship, yeah, you're not going to force the change on them. You're not going to force your value system on them. You're not going to force an entire way of life onto people. Look at examples throughout history of when people have tried to force their way of life onto people. Right? Just look at what happens when you force a value system, force a belief system, force a way of life onto people that doesn't align with them and they don't really want it. How well has that ever actually worked out? It's always been pretty garbage. And next, this does not mean that you let people treat you horribly. This is another misconception. Letting people be in their own worlds doesn't mean that you let them abuse you, or you're just oh, whatever, or you just let them basically take advantage of you. You can have boundaries, right? But when it comes to the people who you continuously relate to in your life, you want these relationships to be very natural and organic and highly compatible and not forced, and this exists. And really, the forcing of this relationship in your life to work is going to create suffering for you and the other person, when the simple letting go is just going to release so much energy that you're just exhausting yourself, exerting so much energy, forcing something to work when it just very fundamentally doesn't. And for the longer that you just keep forcing it, you're going to suffer and just waste a lot more energy, and it's just not good short term or long term. Try it out for yourself though. See if what I'm saying is true. Take it on as a science experiment. Force something onto someone. See how they react. See what starts to happen. Even if they go along with it, see what happens in a week, in a month. See how long they can keep up with it. If it's very out of alignment and inauthentic to them, it's not going to work. So this is just going to create suffering for you and the person who you claim to really care about and love. But Lucas, it's another misconception. But Lucas, there's dangerous people in the world, and everyone should, try and change them because they're dangerous, right? So these dangerous people can benefit from change. All right, I'm going to let you in on a little secret, okay? Everyone can benefit from change. Everyone can benefit from some kind of change. Maybe in the information that they consume, or whether they should start a meditation practice or not, or in their diet or in their exercise. There's room to grow and change in every aspect of human life and relationships and career. But the thing is that, again, forcing this change upon people is not sustainable. This isn't how change actually works within people. Instead, you actually have to ask, how do you help people to change themselves in a self-motivated, authentic, and meaningful way that is aligned with them? How do you get people to care about that? And when it comes to dangerous people, right, I don't know, murderers, things like that, I want you to actually study why they're murderers. Instead of just having this very childish idea that we got at the age of 8 of they're bad people, right? Almost there's a good guy and a bad guy. There's Superman, and then there's whoever the villain is in the Superman movies. It's the Batman and the Joker, this super categorical thinking, black and white thinking, right? Look into why these people actually are the way they are. You'll notice that there's a lot of psychological reasons, childhood, environment, and trauma, and the emotional atmosphere of their childhood, neuroscientific reasons, biological reasons, of course a lot of more very subjective reasons for beliefs that they hold as true. And you'll find that a lot of these people, they have very interesting reasons for being the way that they are. And this isn't an excuse for just letting them be in their own worlds. Yeah, you don't want a murderer in your home. But this definitely shifts your perspective to a more understanding, a more empathetic, and a more compassionate approach for these kinds of people, which doesn't mean that you don't have boundaries, and doesn't mean that you let a rapist into your home, right? That's not what that means. Yeah, these people can actually harm you, right? But why are they the way that they are? And they can benefit from change, right? Once again, forcing some of these people to change isn't going to work once again. And there's a good prison in Norway that's very focused on rehabilitation that works fairly well, especially just the whole Norway prison system is fairly impressive, and they're just very low recidivism rates. I forgot what it's called, maybe the Halden prison, something like that. Maybe something like that. I don't know, don't exactly quote me on that, but there was an entire documentary that I watched on it, and it was a very revolutionary prison style that was very different from what we usually see here, especially in North America and in a lot of places in the world, which is just very barbaric prisons. It's the dungeons from the medieval times, basically, based off of our understanding of how humans develop and human psychology and brain science and biology and all this stuff. It's just oh yeah, this whole approach doesn't actually work when it comes to healing people or integrating them back into society after they do some sort of horrific act. Make the counterintuitive approach and try and actually understand the people who you hate, understand your enemies, understand why, and don't do it from a judgmental point of view. Do it from a actual compassionate place that seeks to just genuinely understand why. Right? Most people don't do that. They're just they're bad and I hate them and they deserve to rot in prison and all that stuff. But really look into why. Can you, in a very honest way, say that you know how people should be and you know how the world should be? Can you honestly say that to yourself? You probably cannot. All right, so when you force a change on someone, whoever that person is, what you're implicitly believing is that you know how they should be, which is a delusion that you have. So the way you're behaving is founded upon this underlying delusion, which makes the whole behavior wrong. And I'm really speaking dominantly within the context of your own personal life. So when you're interacting with people in your personal life, really question, get to the root of, is this relationship really compatible? Why do I want to change them? How do I feel when I'm trying to change them? How do they interpret this? Does this actually work? So that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. I'm offering one-to-one coaching. You can book a call. Link is in the pinned comment and the description. Take it easy.